Welcome to the Deep Dive. We tailor these explorations just for you, the listener. And today, the learner has brought us, well, a really fascinating question. Can ancient Amazonian farming techniques actually hold answers for the growing problem of drought?
That's right. Our focus today is squarely on the drought resilience of what are called traditional chakra agroforestry systems. These are found right there in the Amazon. We've looked through quite a few peer-reviewed scientific studies, examining these systems. They're managed by indigenous communities, often for generations. So our mission really is to uncover how these old practices manage to survive and sometimes even thrive despite droughts getting worse.
Exactly. It's like looking back to look forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to see how these centuries-old methods might offer clues for, our climate-stressed future. The science reviews we're using really try to pin down what makes these chakra systems, well, special. Okay, so let's unpack this. For you, the learner listening in, what exactly is a chakra system? What's the basic idea?
Okay, so fundamentally, chakra systems are really complex agroforestry setups, multi-layered. They've been developed and managed for a long time by indigenous and local communities there in the Amazon. You might also hear them called Quechua home gardens, maybe Swidden fallow agroforestry. But the key thing to grasp, I think, is that they're not simple farms, not just one or two crops. They are incredibly biodiverse. They almost mimic a natural forest structure.
Biodiverse. Right? Yeah, you can really picture that. How do they get started? Is it like a quick process or more gradual?
It typically kicks off with a technique called slash and mulch. So a small patch of forest is cleared, but the vegetation isn't burned away. It's chopped and left as mulch, like a natural fertilizer. And what's really interesting is how it evolves. It goes through cycles. There's cultivation, then these carefully managed fallow periods. That fallow time lets the land recover its fertility naturally. It's not just abandoned land, it's managed recovery. Very important.
Managed fallow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a key distinction, not just letting it go wild, but guiding it. So what are the defining characteristics? What makes a chakra a chakra?
Well, several things really stand out. First, like we said, that huge species diversity. It's not fields of corn or soy. We're talking a dense mix of food crops like cassava, plantain, maize, sure, but also fruit trees, timber, medicinal plants, lots of other useful stuff all growing together. One review mentioned, get this, 35 to 60 different plant species in just 1 hectare. That density of variety is, I think, a really crucial takeaway for you.
Wow, 35 to 60 species in a hectare.
Yes.
That's a lot. It paints a picture of a really vibrant, productive space. What else?
Okay, second is their structure. It's complex, like a mini forest, multiple canopy layers, tall trees, shrubs, ground cover. And this layering, it really shapes the environment inside the chakra. It affects the light, the temperature, the humidity. And then underpinning all of it is tech, traditional ecological knowledge.
Tech, right. That's the wisdom passed down through generations, the local know-how.
Precisely. All the decisions, which plants go where, when to plant, how to manage things, it's all guided by this deep, long-term understanding of the local environment. And finally, another key feature is, well, they generally work with nature. Typically, no synthetic fertilizers, no pesticides. Much more sustainable, inherently. Oh, and it's worth noting, the Shuar people in the region, they call these ajas, just shows how deep these cultural roots go.
Okay, so for you listening, the picture emerging is diverse, complex structure guided by generations of local knowledge. Got it. Now, let's connect this back to the big problem. Drought in the Amazon. What's happening there? What's the situation?
Well, it's unfortunately quite serious. The Amazon is seeing more frequent droughts, and they're getting more intense. The scientific consensus is pretty clear. It's linked strongly to climate change. We've seen major drought events fairly recently. I think 2005, 2010, then again 2015, 2016. And these aren't minor events. They have really widespread consequences.
And what kind of consequences are we talking about specifically?
We're seeing things like, well, large-scale tree mortality, the forest dying off in patches. That reduces the Amazon's ability to soak up CO2, which is, a global problem. Plus, it dramatically increases the risk of wildfires, which can be devastating. And critically, all of this hits the local communities hard. Their livelihoods, their culture, it's all tied to the forest. So if you think about the bigger picture, understanding resilience in these ecosystems is just becoming absolutely vital.
Right. So we have these chakra systems, which sound pretty resilient, sitting in a region that's facing increasing drought threats. This is where it gets really fascinating for me. How do they do it? What are the actual mechanisms that let them handle these dry spells so well?
It's really a combination of interconnected things. It starts, I think, with that agrobiodiversity we mentioned, and what ecologists call functional diversity.
Yeah.
Because you have so many different kinds of plants, you get response diversity. Think of it like this. Different plants react differently to water stress, right? Some are just naturally tougher in drought. Others might have really deep roots to find water. This variety means the whole system doesn't collapse if one type of plant struggles. It's like a built-in insurance policy.
Ah, okay. So for you, the listener, that variety isn't just nice to look at. It's functional. It's insurance because different plants have different coping strategies.
Exactly that. Sometimes it's called the portfolio effect, like in finance, you spread your risk. With all those different crops and useful plants, if one moisture-sensitive crop fails, the community isn't left with nothing. They can rely on others, or even on wild or semi-wild plants from those managed fallows we talked about. The studies confirm this, dozens of species coexisting, creating this crucial safety net. It really boils down to an ecological principle. Diversity breeds stability.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
A diverse portfolio is more resilient. Okay, what's the next piece of the resilience puzzle then?
Soil health and water management within the soil. This is absolutely critical. The way chakras are managed actually improves the soil's ability to hold water. You get this continuous input of organic matter, fallen leaves, crop residues, that mulch we talked about earlier. This boosts the soil organic matter content significantly. One study found almost 20% organic matter near the surface in chakra plots. Compare that to maybe 12% in nearby pastures. Think of that organic matter as like tiny sponges in the soil.
Oh, nearly double in some cases.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference. So how does having more sponge help when it doesn't rain?
Well, more organic matter means better soil structure, more pore space. So when it does rain, the soil can absorb more water and hold on to it for longer. That stored water is then available for the plants during the dry times. Plus, you've got dense ground cover, multiple layers of plants intercepting rain. All this reduces soil erosion and surface runoff. More water actually soaks in. Some research actually measured the soil water content, finding it was 15 to 27% higher in chakra plots during the dry season compared to other land uses. It's basically traditional methods maximizing how much water the soil can hold.
Right. So for you listening, takeaway 2. These traditional practices build better soil that acts like a reservoir for rainwater. Okay, what about above ground? The air, the temperature?
Yeah, that's the microclimate regulation piece. The canopy structure, those multiple layers, they act like a natural umbrella and also sort of like an air conditioner. They reduce how much direct sun hits the ground and the lower plants. This lowers soil temperature and air temperature too. Crucially, lower temperatures mean less evapotranspiration, less water lost from the soil and the plants themselves. We're talking air temps inside the chakra canopy being maybe 3 to 5 degrees Celsius cooler than out in a cleared open area. That's a pretty significant buffer against heat stress.
That cooler, shadier, moisture environment must make a huge difference during a hot, dry spell.
A huge difference. And it's not just shade. The plants themselves, through transpiration, release moisture into the air, and the dense structure slows down wind, which also reduces drying. So together, these effects maintain a higher relative humidity within the system. Studies have actually measured humidity levels being 18 to 23% higher inside chakras during dry seasons. It's like the system creates its own little buffered microclimate, doesn't it? More stable, less prone to drying out. You can see it in the leaf area index, too much more leaf cover than in, say, a monoculture field.
Like a little oasis of cool, damp air within the hotter, drier landscape. Fascinating. Okay, we keep mentioning tech, traditional ecological knowledge. How does that specifically help fight drought?
Oh, tech is just fundamental. It's woven into everything. Indigenous farmers have this incredibly detailed, nuanced understanding of their environment. They know which plant species, even which varieties within a species, are better at handling drought. This knowledge isn't from a textbook. It's from generations of observing, experimenting, passing it down. It directly shapes what they plant and where. For example, they might know certain types of cacao have flowers that open at a time more likely to get rain, or they might use plants like Bactris gassipes, the peach palm, which has ways to control its water loss really effectively.
Okay, so for you, the learner, it's not just random diversity, it's informed diversity. Choosing the right plants, the tough plants, based on centuries of experience.
Exactly right. And tech goes beyond just plant selection. It guides all the management practices. Knowing the best time to plant to maybe avoid the worst of the dry season, how to arrange plants spatially, maybe putting thirstier plants near ones that help retain moisture. Specific techniques too, like using mulch effectively or selective weeding to reduce competition for water. They even know about drought indicator species, certain plants whose condition signals that a dry spell might be coming, letting them prepare. And that whole cyclical management we touched on the Chakra ocean Pura and Real cycle with the managed fallows. That's pure tech, designed to restore the soil and its water holding capacity over time. It's very active, very informed management.
That's just incredible depth of practical knowledge built into these traditions. How does this translate to helping the communities themselves when drought inevitably hits?
Right. This brings us to livelihood diversification. It's another key aspect because chakras produce so many different things, not just the staple foods, but fruits, nuts, fibers for crafts, medicines, timber for building households aren't reliant on just one or two products. So if drought impacts, say, the main food crop, they still have other resources to fall back on for their own use or for income. The forest-like structure can also support some local wildlife for hunting or fishing, though obviously severe drought impacts everything eventually. But crucially, research has shown that households relying on these diverse chakra systems tend to have much more stable incomes during drought years. One study mentioned 30 to 45% less income variability compared to households focused on monocultures. That's a vital economic safety net.
So for you listening, another key point. This diversity isn't just ecological, it's economic. It provides a buffer against hardship for the people living there. Is there anything else happening, maybe underground, that helps?
Yes, there's one more really neat mechanism. It's called hydraulic redistribution, or sometimes hydraulic lift. Certain trees with really deep roots, species like Inga, are common in chakras, and they often have deep roots. They can essentially act like natural water pumps. At night, when they aren't losing much water through their leaves, these deep roots can pull up water from wetter soil layers deep down and then release some of it passively into the drier surface soil layers. This makes that deeper water available to the shallower rooted crops growing nearby. It's been documented scientifically, this nighttime water transfer. It's a kind of subtle cooperation within the plant community.
Wow, hydraulic redistribution. So the deep-rooted trees are kind of sharing the water with their neighbors? That's amazing. Okay, it sounds like these chakra systems are incredibly well suited to handling drought. But, I mean, surely there are limits, challenges they face.
Oh, absolutely. That's a very important reality check. They are highly resilient, yes, but not invincible. One major concern is just the sheer severity and sometimes the novelty of the droughts we're seeing now. Climate change is pushing conditions beyond what even these systems might have traditionally experienced. We could be exceeding their coping capacity.
That makes sense. Climate change is changing the rules of the game. What other kinds of pressures or limitations are there?
There are quite a few socioeconomic pressures, unfortunately. Market forces, for instance. Sometimes there's pressure to shift towards monoculture cash crops, because they might seem more profitable in the short term, even if they're less resilient. Outmigration is another issue. If younger people leave communities, there's a real risk of losing that vital traditional ecological knowledge. It needs to be actively practiced and passed on. Land tenure insecurity can be a problem too. If communities don't have secure rights to their land, there's less incentive to invest the long-term effort needed for these complex systems. And, while a chakra is resilient locally, a single plot or even several plots won't change the regional hydrology or stop a massive drought on their own. Scale matters. Then there's the big climate change projection. Future droughts might just become too intense, too frequent, pushing even these systems past their limits. We're also seeing potential weak spots like maybe some banana or plantain varieties don't handle extreme heat well, or the risk of depleting soil carbon if the fallow periods are shortened too much, or declines in pollinators affecting fruit set. It's complex.
Okay, so for you listening, the reality check is amazing resilience, yes, but facing serious mounting pressures from both climate and society. It's not a magic bullet. Which leads us naturally to the future. Where should research go from here? And what about policy? What could help support these systems?
Yeah, there's definitely more research needed. We need more quantitative studies that directly compare chakra performance yields, water use, income stability against other farming systems, especially under documented drought conditions. Long-term monitoring is also key. We need to track these systems both ecologically and socioeconomically over many years to really understand how they adapt or perhaps struggle over time. And systematically documenting tech related to drought and finding respectful, effective ways to integrate it with scientific findings, that's hugely important. We can't lose that knowledge.
And on the policy side, what kinds of support would make a difference?
Policy can play a huge role. Things like securing land tenure for indigenous and local communities is fundamental, gives them the security to invest long term. Supporting local markets for the diverse products from chakras is important too, making resilience economically viable. And critically, recognizing and finding ways to value the ecosystem services these systems provide, carbon storage, watershed protection, biodiversity conservation, maybe payments for ecosystem services. More research could also inform policy like figuring out the best mix of species for resilience in different places, or working with communities to develop crop varieties that are even more tolerant to heat and drought. Even things like putting an economic value on the drought avoidance services they provide could help make the case for supporting them. And maybe linking traditional drought indicators, that tech knowledge, into wider climate early warning systems could be really beneficial. It's really about bridging science, traditional knowledge, and supportive policy.
This has been just incredibly insightful, a real deep dive. Let's try to wrap up the main takeaways for you, our listener.
Okay, so we've seen that these traditional Amazonian chakra systems show really significant drought resilience, and this comes from a powerful combination of factors. High biodiversity definitely improves soil health and water storage, the way they regulate the local microclimate, the crucial role of traditional ecological knowledge, and the diverse livelihoods they support, providing that economic buffer.
And I think for you, the learner, the big aha moment here, or at least for me, is that these ancient practices, they're not just relics. They embody really sophisticated, time-tested solutions to a major modern problem, climate change and drought.
Exactly. Now, we also have to acknowledge the challenges. Accelerating climate change, socioeconomic pressures, these are serious threats. But recognizing the inherent resilience of these systems and, crucially, supporting the indigenous and local communities who are the stewards of this knowledge in these landscapes, that's absolutely vital. Continued research, integrating tech, supportive policies, they're all needed.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, we really hope it's highlighted the immense value in understanding these complex ancient systems. The lessons they hold could be profound, not just for the Amazon, but potentially for building broader climate adaptation strategies, maybe even in drought-prone areas closer to home, wherever you are.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. Could the core principles of these Amazonian gardens, diversity, integration, deep local knowledge, could they hold keys to designing more resilient food systems elsewhere in our drought-threatened world? What practical insights can you draw from this about the power of biodiversity and the power of traditional wisdom as we all face these growing environmental challenges?